All right, good evening, everybody. What are we going to talk about today? I'm really not prepared to make a video, but I'm always prepared to talk and talk and talk. Something my wife pointed out yesterday. I was, excuse me. I was talking to a couple about a wedding, and my wife was like, "You're talking too much. You're gonna ruin the whole deal, and they're not gonna want to hire you." At the end of the discussion, they were not a Jewish couple. They wanted a totally non-religious wedding, and I mentioned to them, I have, different color robes, and even I could do a themed wedding. And I mentioned I'd done twice a Star Wars themed wedding where I dressed like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I actually have the Shalmi, I don't remember what the name of the robe is, a Jerba or something, some kind of it's an Arabic name for this brown overcoat that the Jerusalemite Jews wear. And I have the whole Jerusalemite costume, including that, the stripes and everything. Excuse me. So, it kind of looks like, like something like from Star Wars, and it's a nice garment actually, and so when they heard that, they said, "Oh, their wedding favors are going to be Star Wars characters." I said, "Oh, so there we go." So that's just a little bit, in the end, the talking too much actually helped out. A little under the weather. It's been cold here, and I tend to like cold weather, but at work it's been really cold. I think even colder inside than outside. It's been raining a lot. I'm sure we need the rain. It's Sfira Tag, and Pinchas Koritzer, who's a great Hasidic master, student of Baal Shem Tov, someone who I have a special devotion to for several reasons. He said that the rain that falls during Sfira is a special segula. It's interesting. In Eretz Israel, it's not supposed to rain after Pesach, but in Europe and in America, it's a rainy season right now. And this rain that falls between Passover and Shavuos, between Pesach and Shavuos, between Passover and Pentecost, it's a very special segula. He said both Ruchnis and Gashmias. It's both a material blessing and a spiritual blessing. And he said it's worthwhile to let the rain fall on your head, fall on your body, even fall on your mouth. Drink a little bit of the rain, and that this is a blessing. It's an interesting thing. I don't remember what his source was for that, but I remember a friend of mine from Israel showed that to me. The idea that we have here with that Sfira. First of all, I guess I want to talk a little bit about my own personal devotions to Rav Pinchas Koritzer. His yahrzeit is the 10th of Elul, and one of my children was born on the 10th of Elul. On the Bezdin for my wife's Geirus was Rabbi Shapiro, Zichron Bracha, was Ben Achmed from Rav Pinchas Koritzer, and his father was called the Koritzer Rebbe, and some other things. I remember Rabbi Shapiro. Some other things about Pinchas Koritzer. I have the Siddur from Toldos Avram Yitzchak, which is a Hasidic group in Yerushalayim, and it has in there by Moida Ani. In the beginning of the day, he said that Pinchas Koritzer would encourage his students to say this very brief little prayer constantly. Rebbeinu Shalom, Necheni B'derech HaEmes. Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the Universe. Necheni B'derech HaEmes. In your grace, guide me on the path of truth. And so, since that's in the Siddur, at least in the morning, when I open up the Siddur, I usually say those few words, and I have been doing that for many years, well over 15 years, and close to 20 years, maybe, yeah, well, at least 15 years or so. So anyway, I visited once, I made a pilgrimage once to the Kever of Pinchas Koritzer when I was a chassan, when I was engaged. So we're talking 13 years ago. I made the pilgrimage to the grave of Pinchas Koritzer, among other tzaddikim in Ukraine. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the Baal Shem Tov. There, the oil of the Baal Shem Tov is the Abderov, the Yisrael, the Baruch Meshbitzer, and the Degel Machne Ephraim. And I went to Levi Yitzchak Berditchever, and I went to Toldus Yaakov Yosef. And out of all of those places, I felt such a service, I felt such a spilus, I felt incredible spiritual experience at the grave of Pinchas Koritzer, which is in Shpetivka. And I was like, what's going on here? That this place, I feel like a magnetism and electricity and energy that I didn't feel, because I'm a big chassid of Levi Yitzchak Berditchever. My family, the Kruller, I didn't know that at the time, but I always loved learning Kedushas Levi and hearing the stories of the Berditchever and singing the songs of the Berditchever. And my family had a connection to the Berditchever. He came to visit my Zayda, the Kruller Rav, Moshe Aryeh Kruller, and Zayda, the Kruller Rav, wasn't so excited about it at first, but in the end he did get a bracha from the Baba, the Rebbetzin, for sure. She wanted to get a bracha from such a tzaddik, from Berditchever Rav, and so the stomach, the Baba, the Chenger Rebbetzin was there, and all, but for sure who we know was there was the Fetter, the Chenger Rebbe, because the Shvuger was first Chenger Ruv, and then was my Zayder, and Moshe Spitz was Ruv and Chenger. It was the Eidim by Moshe Aryeh Kruller, and then the Shvuger, the Fetter, and the Yonis Binyamin was Ruv in Chenger, and also he was a Berditchever chassid, and he was a Shtikler Rebbe also. And the Moshe Spitz was known as a big tzaddik also. And so they say that the Berditchever, when he was there in Krula, and he was there, by the Baba, the Kruller Rebbetzin, and one of the, I guess, the Chenger Rebbe, Yonis Binyamin, was a baby then, and Berditchever Ruf said, "Einer von sei geht von sein von unsere." One of these children, one of these is going to be from ours, meaning he's going to be a chassid, a Berditchever chassid. Taki, he grew up to be a Berditchever chassid. The Chenger Rebbe was a Berditchever chassid, and that was before the Meluchas Asher. It was the famous Rebbe of Chenger. But before him was Yonis Binyamin Ostreicher, his uncle, and before him was the Zayda, Moshe Spitz. Anyway, so I have a child named Sasha, but like and I felt something special there by the Baal Shem Tov and by the Berditchever, but by Pinchas Koritzer, it was something totally different. And what's that for Pinchas Koritzer? And it's interesting, but on the Bezdin by my wife, who's a Karatzer Rebbe, the Shtikler Rebbe, you could say, or a Rebbe Shekind, Ben Acher Ben from Pinchas Karatzer, and to have one child who was born on the yard side of Pinchas Karatzer. And this, to always say, there was a lot of beautiful teachings by Pinchas Karatzer. So this about Sfira, it's also interesting that again, we're seeing that the idea of Avelus during Sfira is not as rooted as we think it is. We tend to think of Minhagei Avelus of Sfira as a halacha when they're actually minhag. And they're beautiful minhagim, and it's important, but people take it further than it has to be. It's a thing people don't understand. It's not a halacha, it's a minhag, but it's a strong minhag, and we should keep it. But again, like we said in our previous video, what is considered to be binding halacha, that's binding on all of Klal Yisrael, are the Piskei Halacha of the Sanhedrin. That's what it means, Torah Sheba'al Peh. And anything that didn't have the Haskama of the Bezdin HaGadol, called Sanhedrin, and that word Sanhedrin is used for other things as well. It's just a Greek word for a court. But when we speak of the Sanhedrin, we mean the Bezdin HaGadol, whether it was in Yerushalayim or in Yavna or wherever it was, in Usha, different places where Bezdin HaGadol was. After that, there's nothing binding on all of the Klal Yisrael. These other things, they're minhagim that are local minhagim. And really, this Avelus by Sfira, it started really essentially as Ashkenazi minhag, and the Sephardim were Mekabel as well. But it's B'teres minhag and not B'teres halacha, not B'teres choiv. It's a custom and not a law. And it's a pious thing to do. It's a religious devotion. But it shouldn't be mistaken for a halacha. And certainly, the level of chumrah that we have attached to it, we have to take into consideration. Now, the Mekubalim, the Ariya Kaddish, it would seem that it's the minhag by most of Hasidim, is that we don't cut hair. Of course, we don't shave the beard ever. We don't cut our hair between Pesach and Shavuos. The whole 50 days, and that's how I was brought up. Even though my mother wasn't so frum, there's an interesting thing like Shmir Shabbos. No, the kashrus only on Pesach, but we didn't cut our hair between Pesach and Shavuos, except on Lag B'omer. By Chassidim, even Lag B'omer, generally are not cutting hair, except a 3-year-old boy. Used to be a mol was only a 3-year-old boy in Meron, but generally in Chutz La'aretz, any 3-year-old boy, it's his halakha, he gets the haircut Lag B'omer. But all the other parts of it, it's it is what it is. So what else can we talk about here? But that's important to know that there are different minhagim about Avelus and Sfira. So generally, the Sephardim, they keep from Pesach until Lag B'omer, but including Lag B'omer, they don't start cutting hair until Lag B'omer, until the 34th day. The Ashkenazim, there's essentially three minhagim. There's one is to keep from Pesach to Lag B'Omer. One is to keep from Rosh Chodesh Iyar until Erev Shavuos. But Lag B'Omer is a day off, which means you could cut your hair on Lag B'Omer. And the other is the Kabbalistic custom is not to cut hair the whole time from Pesach till Shavuos. But that's just cutting hair. But other things we're matter. So and if a chassid, something like that, so he cut his hair on Lag B'Omer, whatever it is. It's a special reason to cut the hair on Lag B'Omer, but just stam to cut on Lag B'Omer, generally not. That's usually just when it comes to hair cutting. Now there are different minhagim. You have Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim. They'll say every Erev Shabbos to shave, because by them they don't want the bachrim to have beards. And usually by most of the literature in America, the minhag became, even though it's very new, is that they shave the beard until they're married. And then even so, they trim the beard and so forth. And all the different minhagim with that. Really, if you learn the old minhag in Lita, by the Vilna Gaon, by the Chavetz Chaim, whatever it was, the Chavetz Chaim was very upset that they were cutting the beards. But again, we're living in a modern society, we have to recognize that what we call the literature derech, there's a lot of new things in it. It's really more of an American derech than a literature derech. And a lot of that had to do with the Pashut they were doing kiruv. Yes, in Europe it was a different story, but in America, why in Chavetz Chaim or in Turvadas or in other places, why were the Malachim turned away from Turvadas for having the Chassidish Levush? Because you keep such a Chassidish Levush, it's going to scare away the American parents. It's hard enough to get a kid into yeshiva, and then you're going to go do this. They're going to be scared away. So this is the type of yeshiva that this is not for us. And so that's what it was. Samarav, when he came to visit Turvadas, and he said these are such choshev bachrim, and he ungewünscht bracha. Back then Turvadas was in Williamsburg. Ungewünscht bracha, that your chitzain, you should reflect your panemius. And usually it's the opposite. That we're worried. We look so pious on the outside, but on the inside we're rotten. But here we sit in Turvadas, they're so holy on the inside, but the outside you should you should reflect the inside. But the thing is, you have to understand where we're coming from, what kind of community is, and and the thing was, you look at pictures from when Samarav was in America. He was the only one who had a beard, and I remember Herschel Kornreich was inside a very choshev of Baba Yid, who I've known for years. So he said to me, he used to live on the Lower East Side. He'd walk over. He said after Baba Barav moved to the West Side, so he would go to Samarav to Tish, and he would walk over the bridge on Shabbos to go to the Tish by Samarav, and it would be a minyan by the Tish. It wasn't a big minyan. It wasn't thousands of people, hundreds of people. It was a minyan, maybe 20 people. It was a lot of people that day, And he said the only ones with beards were the Rebbe and the Gabba, Rabbi Yosel Ashkenazi, and he himself, Rabbi Herschel Kornreich, and that was it. Nobody else had beards. Everyone else was with short jackets, with bent-down hats, and that was what it was in Williamsburg in the early 1950s. So and now it's a different world, and so to recognize. But the thing is that certain things became, that's how they started, and that's how everything was. But now in America, like Satmarov said, and the Bosner Rebbe said the same thing. He said, the hippies, shame to chnish. Even the goyim have. I don't mean that in a negative way, but like, people. It's not only Hasidim who have beards. Anybody can have a beard. So you can have a job and have a beard, and it's not going to keep you from having a job. Like it was 60 years ago. You couldn't get a job if you had a beard. Only an old man had a beard. Nobody else. And the literature of Rabbanim would say something like a bacher with a beard is like a tie on pajamas. It doesn't go together. You're not holding there yet. And the truth is, even my Rebbe from high school, Moshe Weinberger, would push men to grow beards, but you have to have a time and a place for everything. And one of the Bachim in Yeshiva grew a beard in Payas, and Rabbi Weinberger said it's pasnish. You got to wait. And the same thing for me. He wasn't so happy when I started growing Payas, and he's like, don't. It's not. Don't. And the thing is, we catch on to these chitzonius things, these exterior things, and are we living up to it? I mean, I see the same thing at work. I work with the we have an Eastern Orthodox Christian priest, and he has his students, that because he's a professor at the seminary, and the students the same thing. The priest who I work with, he just has a little goatee. He doesn't have a full beard like most of the Orthodox have, and he doesn't wear his cassock all the time. And the students, they all want to wear a cassock 24/7, and whereas like I remember he took me to see the seminary on a tour, and he said, when he's around the bishop, he has to wear his cassock, and as soon as he knew the bishop wasn't going to be around anymore, he told someone, all right, bring my cassock back to the car. I don't need it now. And he's a priest. He's a parish priest, and he and he says, when he goes shopping, when he goes to a restaurant, whatever, he wears a regular outfit. He doesn't wear his collar, but when he's at work, he wears his collar, and So it's interesting, how similar these things are, because it's the same thing. Here I am, and I go with the Rebbe Shalavush. Although when I go to work, I wear a tie, but I wear bekisha during the week. Sometimes I wear blue bekisha during the week. But for me, it's more when I'm outside of the Jewish community. If I go to Monroe, I'm not going to wear blue bekisha during the week. Usually, once in a while, I'm happy to be there. But the thing is, I'll also wear a T-shirt, if it's appropriate. But when I'm at work and I'm representing Torah, I dress like a rabbi. And other people feel, no, that's you're. So how do you balance these things? What's the right thing? And the thing is, and because I'll tell people, Bali Tshuva and Gerim, if you're not going to be a professional rabbi, and you're not living in Williamsburg or Borough Park or Monsey, there's no reason to put on the whole levush. Maybe you want on Shabbos wear a Shtreimel Beketche, but you have to wear a rekel during the week. You have to wear a beaver hat. Probably not, and it's nice to, you want on Shabbos wear a bend-down hat and a beketche and a tie. It looks very nice, actually, and that's how I dressed for a while. I didn't wear a tie usually, but I wore a bend-down hat and a beketche for a while on Shabbos, and And I remember in yeshiva, in Or Sameach, they didn't want all the boys to right away start wearing a hat, or maybe they just wear a hat on Shabbos and not during the week, things like that. And I remember they made a yearbook, and they said b'shum ofen there should not be any pictures of any boys with hats, no pictures with hats. So for the same reason, like we said by Torah Das, we don't want to scare people away. We don't want to scare the parents away. We have to, if we do these types of things, it's gonna ruin the whole thing. Not because they're against hats, but because you have to do things in the proper way, and the same thing. I mean, I took my kids to a comic convention, a little comic convention, not a big one, this weekend, and I've had my boys wear baseball caps, and they had their payas down, Kraseldick. You could see they were eating. They had their tzitzis out, but they had the baseball cap, and I had like a rain hat on, kind of like Gilligan's Island, type of thing. But why? Because it's why not? I don't know. It's my Zayda always wore. All of was near the Chiyid. He always wore baseball cap, except Shabbos wear yarmulke. And when we went to shul, he wore a nice fedora, something, like a gray fedora, brown fedora. He had a black fedora too, I think. And das gewähnt the Zayda. It's and I loved it. I remember I loved him so much, and like I felt so proud to see him dressing like this. He looked like a mensch, it looked, with a hat, it's a nice thing, I always liked hats, even before I was from, so like so it is what it is. So Chlachtos the ganze Sach, but yeah, that's like, so I wear the Rebbe Levush, and I shouldn't get into all this chitzonius things, and I tell other people not to do it. Certain people, depends who it is, depends what they're trying to do. But the same thing, Avram Goldstein also wears a Rebbe Levush, wears a bekisher during the week and things, so. I at least have a Rabbanish yichus, going back in Hungary, where the Hungarian Rabbanim, that's how they dressed, they would wear a kolpik, they would carry a cane, they would they'd wear a bekisher, even it had nothing to do with being Hasidish, so in a sense, the Hungarian Rabbanim were the holistic approach to Judaism, where you combined Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Hasidish in one cohesive package, and I think they really did a good job of that. I gotta go inside, start making dinner, so before my family gets home this week, they have something good to eat. That's what Shaila Karastir would be making food. We put up the video today. It was not really by accident. The video of Mordechai Jungreis, who's a good friend of ours, the Nikolsberger Rebbe, Slogas Ensign, peeling potatoes for Yontiv. Fayidin, like Shaila Karastir, it's same thing. You could be working in a restaurant, working in a pizza shop, and you're giving food to Jews, so they're making brachas, so learning Torah, they're davening with that energy. You're part of that chain. It's a holy thing. It's not a small thing. Someone asked, "What was the rabbi doing, working in a pizza shop?" I said, Shaila Karastir. But when all the other tzaddikim were having kavanas and meditating before and going to mikveh and things before Tekiyah Shofar, he was cutting the cake for the kiddush, so Yidden should have what to eat. So I have I have, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Shalom gave me, 7 other Jews who live in my house, my wife and six kids, and myself also. I also have to feed myself. So let me go inside. I'll put some hot dogs and French fries in the oven. Because in Tehei, Shalom Al Yisrael. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment.